First thing that bothers me, and you can call this a selfie, stop taking pictures of your legs at the beach. You've done that before. Stop it. That is
You want to see my feet?
Toes in the sand.
Toes in the sand. Current situation, man.
Hey, welcome to the Adler.tv show, where every week I host and post a new episode with a new guest in a new location. Be sure to check out Adler.tv for previous episodes and all the links regarding this episode. This episode, my guests are Tony Kurre and Dr. Joshua Klapow. Tony Kurre is a legendary radio DJ, and Dr. Josh Klapow is a psychologist. Together, they host the K&K show at Tony Kurre's home studio. I should mention that we're going to talk about some of Tony Kurre's edgier days as a radio DJ. We're going to tell some of the edgy stories, and so this might not be an episode for kids to listen to, or adults either. Luckily, Dr. Josh Klapow, the psychologist, is there to even all things out. Check it out. Well, I am at a home studio that is probably the easiest and best location I've ever been. I've had to deal with train tracks and homeless people making weird sounds in the background. This place is an actual studio, and it is set up incredibly well. The Kurre and Klapow show are the two hosts that I'm sitting down with right now. One is a psychologist, and the other needs one. Tony Kurre and Josh Klapow, thank you guys so much for joining me.
Chris.
Hey, what's up? Welcome in.
Thank y'all so much for letting me invade your home studio here.
We've gone from a man cave to a man studio is what we've done.
So I've got a funny history with you guys and how I've know both of y'all, but how did y'all two get together?
Josh, would you like to take this one?
Sure, Tony, I'd be happy to. So when I moved here in 1996, I moved from Los Angeles, and I was KLOS was my station. And so I moved from LA to Birmingham, and I was lost. I was lost. And I turned on the radio, and, there was a guy who sounded like he should be on KLOS. And I remember just thinking for a minute, like, okay, it's going to be okay, and the music was good, etc. And that's how I learned of Tony Kurre, and then just continued to follow his career. And then at one point when Tony shifted over to sports and was doing Jocks, I don't remember the exact circumstance, but I got asked to be on Jocks to talk about something. I think it was domestic violence or something. And I distinctly remember I came in, as I always did, and you know me, Chris, I came in very prepared. I'd done all my research, was ready to talk about all the issues, tons of sports stuff. I had related sports stuff. And I sit in front of these three guys, and the first question out of his mouth, this guy leans over and he goes, I got a question for you. Sure. And what does it mean to be a man? And I'm looking at him, and my first thought was, yeah, he is as crazy as everybody said.
And that vein popped out. I was like, yes.
And it was like this test, and I kind of looked at him, and, you just look at guys, and that sort of started a recurring appearance on Jocks. And then we just got to be friends. We found out we didn't live that far from each other. And then when an opportunity came up to do a talk show, I was like, this opportunity came up, and he's like, let's do it.
I mean, it was kind of a hobby for both of us, because I was doing the thing on Jocks, and he obviously is a very successful doctor, and he's all over the place on ABC Nightly News and this, that, and the other. And I thought, wow, I'm just happy to be associated with a psychologist of his caliber, right? And so, for radio for so long, we've kind of been like, okay, are you a sports guy? Are you a news talk guy? Are you a music guy? Are you, what are you? And you're thrown into that position and you execute that format. Well, radio's changed a lot. And certainly with podcasts and with the internet and everything else, now you can create your own animal. Now you can be who you want to be. And the one thing about Kurre and Klapow is, we're like, what are we? We were a relationship show at first, and then we were a lifestyle show. And he goes, what makes us different? I said, the difference is it's Kurre and Klapow. We can talk about the same crap that they talk about on any other program, but it's our views and it's our chemistry, and that's what sets us apart. That's what we love about it.
And it's interesting because when we first started the show, we would just talk about anything. And because we were on at night, there would be a lot of relationship stuff that would come up, and, talk about some sex stuff. And it was hysterical because we would do a 3-hour show, and we'd cover everything from parenting to politics to sports. But if we talked about sex at all, then everyone, and from that point on, y'all are a sex show. It's a sex show. We're like, we're not a sex show. It's not a sex show. But what people started appreciating was, and you can explain this better, but nobody had any idea where we're going to go next. It wasn't random, but there was no restriction. And so people would go, I turned it on. And like an hour and a half later, I'm still waiting. Like, where are they going to go? What are they going to talk about?
Well, the old question is, would you say the same thing on your microphone if there were a group of Boy Scouts in your studio? No. It's never been that way. Why would I do that? I wouldn't say that if my family was in the studio right now.
That's
so,
right.
And our best moment was I said something that had something to do with whiskey and the male part of the anatomy. And I put those two words together, and it was being blared out at a World Deer Expo down at the BJCC.
We didn't know.
While the PD and families were walking by, and he's calling me up going, "You can't say that when there's a group of Boy Scouts walking by the studio." And I was like, okay, well, that's what our show is.
Yeah, Tony, you growing up, you were the guy. I moved from Texas to Alabama, and in Texas we had Rock 99.5 Kiss. And Kiss 99.5 in San Antonio, and I moved here. I'm like, I gotta get that station. I got like same boat you were in. I'm like, I gotta get this. This was in the year 2000, and I turn on Rock 99.5. I'm like, awesome! I got the voice, I got the music, I got it all. And Tony, you come from a different time, like of when FM radio, like you were talking about earlier. It's the market is splintered.
Yep.
It's crazy. People can do and watch whatever they want, however they want, whenever they want now. So FM radio is just not the same world anymore at all. But the world that you came up in and extremely excelled at and just dominated for quite a while was a crazier time, my friend. Like there's so many, nobody had a camera in their hands all the time, so you could get away with doing all kinds of crazy stuff that you normally wouldn't.
Oh, you couldn't keep your job unless you had a DUI. I mean, back in the day, you got a DUI and your GM was there to bail you out going, good job. You got a promotion. I'm giving you a raise. No, seriously. I'll be honest with you. I remember my 22nd birthday, my boss hired a stripper for me in the studio. And when you walked in the lobby, say you won some concert tickets from the country station, you walked in and there it was. And it's just a different time. It really is. And we talked about this, Chris, before we started doing this podcast. There's a finite number of radio stations, and that's all you had. Much like it was when we grew up. There were 3 TV stations and then public television. That was it. Mm-hmm. And you got up to change the channel too. Now there's so many different things that you can do, and we're a better world for it. But I also think we're a better world for the idea of, I got a chance to create my dream here. I did classic rock since I was 12. I'm in my 40th year doing classic rock. I did 13 years. I went to ESPN twice. I did a great sports show. And when I thought, what do I know the most about? And what can I talk about? And it's classic rock. It hasn't changed. It's just gotten better and better and better. I can go to Atlanta and try to talk about Atlanta United Soccer and be, behind the curve, where I can start talking about Led Zeppelin and Robert Plant stories. I can go for a day on that. So I thought this is a perfect opportunity to start this radio station.
Too cool.
He savors classic rock.
Right.
The more that we've gotten into this as part of our show, you see it's like a connoisseur, but not snobby. He truly loves the music. He loves the stories behind it. And what's so interesting, particularly for our show, is we'll take any one of his classic rock stories, and because music involves people, we'll turn it into whatever the topic is. So if we're talking about parenting, we'll talk about Mick Jagger's. How old's Mick Jagger's kid?
He's 2 years old. And he's 75.
Right. Okay. Well, there's a story for you.
How's that possible?
So it's been a great combination because it's a backdrop of my generation. I love the music, and the music has a way of just being sort of the umbrella for everything that we talk about.
And the listener's probably not going to care about this, but radio for the longest time was programming and sales. It was 50-50. Program would come in and say, we got this brand new client. They spent a lot of money, and program would go, we're not running the commercial. It doesn't fit our programming. And they'd have to put up with it. And then programming would say, listen, we got this great promotion, and force it down sales' throat and say, we're doing this because ratings come first, and then you sell the ratings. Eventually, ratings just didn't mean anything anymore. It was all about what can we sell, because we knew the ratings were going to be up and down. In our particular format, that's what's so beautiful about it. I'm doing things that I've always wanted to do on radio. I've got a great stunt coming up in December that I can't wait to do, that I've been trying to do for 6 years. But I couldn't do it because sales couldn't attach some Pepsi-Cola money to it or some Coca-Cola money to it. We can't do it unless we have a big banner below it. Well, what happened to stunts? What happened to the fun part of radio? What about, caging ourselves up or jumping 30 feet into 4 feet of water with a donkey like I did at the Alabama State Fairground or sitting on a billboard for 3 weeks? Now I'd have to sign a disclaimer and I wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, I remember when I used to go to bed with my transistor radio and listen to WSAI. It was an AM station up in Cincinnati. I was listening to Marty and Joe on the radio and then listening to my favorite classic rock station up there. I remember going to bed with my transistor radio. I'm not asking people to listen to the radio 24 hours a day, but I want people to remember the fun part of radio again. Right now, it's just, you tolerate it. You tolerate classic rock. I want people to have passion for it. I want them to love it again.
Yeah, I was working at a AAA station, Live 100.5, which was actually, a lot of people know 107.7 The X, and that was kind of the big, the big station at the time. And then in between, what we now have is Birmingham Mountain Radio. In between that, kind of the in-between little stepping stone was Live 100.5, at Live 100.5, and that was the station I worked my way up. Initially, I was just like the web guy, and then the reckoning happened at Citadel, where they just realized, okay, like you said, they made this shift from wanting to have a great program that people listen to all the time. They said, okay, drive time. That's what we'll do. And they changed their format to cater to people that only listen to for 15 minutes at a time in their car. Yep. And they just, to me, I was just like, what are you doing? You're shooting yourself in the foot. You're encouraging people not to listen. 107.7
was maybe one of the last great radio stations Birmingham has had. I mean, I remember the Beaner Ken days. I remember filling the diaper in the mornings. I remember some of the stunts and it would drive PDs and GMs crazy. It was great radio. Live at the X Lounge. And ultimately, because of the age group that it was going after, they weren't big spenders, but they were very passionate P1s. They loved their radio. And you could see that when they shut it down, the people in the parking lot, it was pretty awesome. I loved that radio station, what they did. It was super.
I never realized, I just kind of love classic rock and never thought about it. And so as part of what we do in Kurre and Klapow is we pick the bumpers, right? And he will tease me that the only reason I decided to do a radio show with him was so I could have my own classic rock radio station, which is kind of true because that's what. So I would just send him songs that I liked, and I love him. He's a great guy. He's like, and for a good reason. No, it's too slow in the beginning. There's too much of this. There's too much of that. And then I started asking him. He's like, I want up tempo rock and classic rock. Okay, great. So I'd send in 5 more songs. And he'd be like, not that one, not that one, not that one. And I'm like, do you not? Well, I was like, do you not like those songs? No, they're not classic rock. So we ended up doing this whole thing on air for an hour. Okay, Tony, what the hell is classic rock? And if you ask him, it's somewhere between, there's like some objective criteria.
Yes.
And then there's this like other piece that you only get to earn if you're like Kurre.
Yes.
Or a Bob Coburn out in LA.
That is correct.
His soul. I mean, it's that kind of stuff.
That's so funny. Yeah. I worked at a Harley Davidson dealership for a little while, and I was the only guy that had an iPod. This was back, when people had iPods instead of iPhones or whatever. And so I got to DJ. Because we listened to the local rock station in Opelika, Alabama, and you get sick of hearing, what's that guy that used to be in Slipknot and then he did his own thing? I'm staring at you looking through the glass, all the time has passed or whatever. You would hear that 8 times in an 8-hour shift. And you're like, what are we doing? What are these people doing? They're programming this. So eventually I brought my iPod in and I kind of worked through that line of what is classic rock. And I found out that, Paul Simon's not classic rock.
No. We used to play Carole King. We played James Taylor. I mean, we were such a classic rock icon, 99.5, the shirt you got on. We could play anything and force it down people's throat. They're like, well, if they're playing Carole King, then it must be classic rock. And that's the difference between KCAST radio is Stairway to Heaven, Freebird, I mean, I'm not playing a song as a filler. I mean, it's got to be a great classic rock song to make it. A Sweet Emotion made it. Walk This Way made it. Don't Want to Miss a Thing? I don't think so. I'm not going to play anything slow. I'm not going to play. I'm going to say this one time. It's all killer, no filler. Right? I'm dean of the music scene, pumping wattage in your cottage. No, seriously, it's got to be a great classic rock song. If I hear a song that I'm going, okay, they're just playing these next two songs because the third song's a killer, those other two songs shouldn't be played. And people are going to go, Stairway to Heaven? You don't play Stairway? Why should I play Stairway to Heaven? It's stinking 7 minutes and 58 seconds long. You've heard it a million times. Do you need to hear it again? The last thing I want to hear on a Friday afternoon is Stairway to Heaven on my way home. I don't care. If you want to go make out, you've got it on your phone, go in the back seat and get it done.
That, and Chris, that speaks to this bigger challenge that I see and why I like doing the radio show with him. People can get any kind of entertainment now, any place they want, and there's so much redundancy. Redundancy meaning, if you want to listen to Stairway to Heaven and it's not on right now, there's 6 different ways that you could listen to it just like that. Well, the same thing goes for any sort of talk format. I mean, you can listen to any station, any podcast, anything. I mean, it's almost, think about it, it's almost an infinite number of conversations, music, etc. So for me, the challenge is, particularly as a psychologist, I mean, there's tons of psychologist shows, there's tons of call-in shows. So for me, the challenge is, what can you do to make people want to listen? And one of the things that he taught me, so one is it has to be compelling. It has to be compelling. But I think now, because there's the content's everywhere, the music's everywhere, again, it doesn't matter what the song is, you can have it. What makes it compelling is the whole package. So to me, what makes KCAST radio compelling is not just the music, but it's the music wrapped with Tony's insights. What makes Kurre and Klapow interesting is not just the fact that he knows a lot about music and I happen to be a psychologist. Our chemistry is such, we're the best of friends. You will see us get pissed off at each other or hear us get pissed off at each other. He will embarrass me. I will push him to the limit. And it's so authentic that I don't know how to describe it. It comes through. So people are not saying, well, you said something that I've never heard before. It's more of, man, what you guys were talking about, and we've done this, I got it. Well, that's what makes this and in this day and age, I feel like if you're going to grab people, you got to grab them with authenticity, not content, because content is anywhere.
You can't fake chemistry. You can't fake chemistry. I mean, you can't do it. We could talk about the same thing that the soft morning show talks about or whatever, but our content's better because we believe it. We're like, does this make the cut? Let's get into it. We love each other, and we work on it. So.
And value. You guys are bringing value to people in lots of different ways. It's humor and it's insights and then showing people some new tunes maybe that they haven't heard in a long time too. There's value in that too. And if you are consistent and continue to do that, eventually you're going to build and find an audience, and that's what you guys are doing, and that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what any successful person that you see that is at a high level right now. For instance, Joe Rogan. I've been following Joe Rogan on Twitter for 10 years now.
10 years.
9 years ago, he was sending out links to his podcast, and I'm like, his podcast, that's kind of lame. That's like the cool UFC fear factor, this, that kind of guy. He should be sticking to that kind of stuff. And for years I would see that link, never checked it out. I was like, man, that just seems low budget and weak and lame. And now look at it. It's like it's as big as Oprah, I mean, no joke, it's as big as Oprah. So you got to be consistent, and big respect to you guys for doing what you're doing. So we were just talking off air just a little bit here in the break about how you and I initially first met. You were doing a weekly night show. Was it a guest spot or were you a regular? I forget.
No. It was I think it was called the B-side with Alan Hunter and Josh.
That's right. Yeah. So Alan Hunter, original MTV VJ, comes in and he's playing some 80s tunes and then asked you for some psychological insights.
Well, I think they wanted, he had been pressured. People wanted him on the air here. I mean, he had been voice tracking and doing all this stuff for Sirius, and people obviously wanted him on the air. And he and I had a mutual friend, and we kind of introduced each other, etc. And one thing led to another, and Alan gave me a call and said, I'm going to be on, there was an opportunity to be on 100.5. Let's do something together. And, of course, I said yes. And that led to, although it took us forever to come up with the name of the show, it also took us a while to figure out what it is that we wanted to do with the show, because I think there was a combination of me being a psychologist. What was that going to be about? Alan having this sort of music background, but also Alan wanting to sort of not just talk about 80s music. I mean, he really wanted to have a voice. And so the B-side really became a sort of eclectic, somewhere between music, high-end guests, and social topics. And it was a great learning experience. And Alan's pretty cerebral when it comes to this stuff. But, we came up with a bad time when the show or when the station then changed format again, as we were talking about. And so as easy as it was to get on, it was done.
Maybe it changed format because of you guys.
No. Maybe.
So I just think about how much has changed in that amount of time when it comes to just our social interactions, because you talked a ton about that kind of stuff, relationships, and like Facebook was a thing, but it wasn't as ubiquitous. Like college students had it. And now it's just everyone and everything almost is centered around that. You were talking the other day on your show about how really as a broadcaster, we're kind of forced to do this, sharing this, posting this, all this stuff. And you're talking about how, it's kind of just makes people depressed just in general. Like, so what are we doing? Why do we... I don't know.
Do we have to get on social media to make ourselves feel better? I mean, I remember the first time, it's like having an answer machine. Remember when the first time you got an answer machine, you could not wait to get home and see that thing blinking. You're like, ooh, now I look at my phone, I got 8 messages. I'm like, crap. I don't even check them right away. I'll check them for 3 or 4 days. I'll wait for the thing to fill up. Social media thinks the same way. I mean, I know people that actually have 2 accounts and they'll follow each other just so when they post something, it's notified that the other account's got like, oh, look, I just got a notification from myself. I'm not kidding. It's like sending flowers to yourself on Mother's Day. But it makes people feel good. I mean, I get it. But in this particular industry, if you're a business, you're crazy not to. I mean, you can say what you want about Nick Saban. He needs a Twitter account. It cannot hurt. Right. It cannot hurt for him to have someone do a Twitter account. He would have 125 million followers the first day he goes on. It cannot hurt you to have something that's going to go. If you touch one person you're not talking to now, you have to use it. It's a great networking tool.
I mean, I think it speaks to the theme is the same, which is technology and change. And I think, again, you have to look at these kinds of things generationally. I mean, you can go all the way back. I'm just using this. Elvis and the shaking of the hips, right? And all the parents who were outraged and all the teenagers who thought it was the most amazing thing in the world, right? I mean, I'm using that as an anchor because it's no different. You talk to the generation, you're a little bit older, but you talk to the generation that was 18 and 20 years old, all of this stuff, as many different outlets as there are, they're not overwhelmed by it. I'm not saying that they're on it constantly even, but it's just a part of their environment, and they pick something up and they communicate one way or another. Depending on how old you are, it becomes more of okay, how am I going to use this and what am I going to use this for, etc. It's not quite as natural. I think our age is, we're not too old, definitely not too old, but there's the learning curve piece. What I like about it though for our age is it speaks to a lot more social issues. We have done shows on breaking up on the internet, or breaking up on social media, professing your love on social media. He gets on my ass all the time about why I write things about my family, long things about my family. What's wrong with me? Why do I do that? Do I do that for my own ego?
I know people now that they communicate much like a text through social media. And I'll use an example. My wife, she's on social media a lot because she does a lot of stuff for the Bright House Foundation. When I retweet or repost one of her things, she's nice to me. Because I'm supporting her. I mean, I get that. And sometimes we'll talk back and I'll send a heart and go, hey, I'm thinking about you, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's crazy, but I mean, that's the way it is. The scary thing about social media to me, though, is I know a couple people that are professionals that if I get on Facebook right now, they will post me right back, which means they're on Facebook or they're getting the notification wherever they are and they're getting it back on. And when you get that deep into it, what do you miss in the rest of life? What else is going on in your life that you're missing out on? Because we did something up at Cumulus, and they found out the people that are on Facebook were on it an average of 5.5 hours a day. And they're like, they shut it down. They put a firewall up. 5.5, you're only at work 9 hours a day, and you're on Facebook 5.5 hours a day.
See, it's
and if
fascinating.
you tell them, they're like, there's no way. I was on maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. Yeah, check your phone.
I mean, so much so that
Talk about
Apple and others
depressing.
are telling you screen time, right? So,
Yes.
but that's not going to stop. I mean, this is the whole thing. I think as a psychologist, this is the most interesting thing. We need to just stop social media. We need to. What are you going to do? Turn off the internet?
Right.
You know, I mean, so to me, what's more interesting is how are we evolving around it? How are we adapting around it? And what are the challenges that it places? We've talked about this a lot. You know, with kids or parents who've got kids, teenagers who don't know how to look up, you know, from their phones, and they don't know how to do social interaction. You have to teach them how to talk, right? And oh my God, it's terrible. No, it's not terrible. It's like teaching someone to do handwriting, right? I mean, it's to me, it's all about adaptation and social adaptation. That gives us content for our show. What's fascinating to me though is how hypnotic social media is for people and how easy it is. We've said this. You said this, Chris, earlier. This whole idea that everybody's got a phone now. So anything you do in public, the idea that it wouldn't be caught on camera, particularly if you're doing something, is pretty absurd.
Right.
And yet there's no shortage of people doing stupid stuff,
Right.
which as a psychologist, I'm fascinated by that. Like, think about it. I mean, all of them, I was thinking using the Michael Phelps thing, right? Really? You didn't think anybody was going to, and so to me, that's what's fascinating from the human side is these things and devices that are watching us all the time. They're watching us do and be who we really are. And that is just, I don't know how to say it, man. That's money for people like me.
There you go. Yeah, that's so funny. It's also something I have to remind myself of all the time is that it's a highlight reel of people's lives a lot of times. You know, like this is not their life. This is a highlight reel of their life. Like if I get on social media for too long, I'm spending too much time on it for like a week or something like that. I get this weird, like just gloomy feeling, like thinking that my life is not great, you know? And I got a pretty great life. Like I got to remind myself of that all the time because I see people, new car, new house, new whatever, and new vacation, whatever the case may be. And it's like, dude, this is a highlight reel of people's lives. And the way that people interact with it is some people use it well. Some people do too much. Some people show how crazy they are. Case in point, when you see women with too many selfies.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt.
What's the other one? Or pictures of their animals.
Her picture, yeah,
He doesn't
exactly.
like that, pictures of the animals.
No, pictures of animals, pictures of food. I'm like, I don't get it. I mean, I almost took a picture of my pop this morning.
The food thing's a thing, man. All the
No,
kids
it's
are taking
not.
all pictures of
Okay,
food.
that's fine.
What's good? What good is a plate of food if you don't take a picture of it?
Yeah,
guys?
so, but
Come on.
that's life. That is life.
Yeah, but I don't need to see everything in your life.
No, you
If you
don't.
want to post something that's remarkable, maybe it's your son's birthday or your birthday to your wife, or maybe you're on a trip, or
Don't you want to see the meal I just
or
ate?
you even want to post, a Bible verse or something. That's fine. But when you just
But the
continually
lasagna that I had, it was amazing.
when you continually post things that, quite frankly, you think that it's almost, you're right. It's almost like, it's not even a highlight. It's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of like some people think, oh my gosh, I haven't posted in 15 minutes. I better post something. Why? I mean, post something that's important.
Oh.
People that post things, that's right, important period,
to who?
that we care about. Because one jerk is going to go, I'm with you. I felt the same way this morning about that blah, 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 blah. And that
lasagna.
makes you feel better about that particular moment. But what of a loser are you that you got to post the fact?
What about like I'm in urgent care and my stomach hurts? And now I'm leaving urgent care and I've spent 3 hours
God bless
here.
you, Josh. I hope you're okay.
There you go. Prayers
Prayer,
up.
hands, and a heart. I mean, how desperate are you for attention? I mean, it's ridiculous. What a loser.
Do you see why I love this stuff?
Oh, my gosh. I'm just like, there's such bigger problems we have.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. It's crazy. I didn't grow up with it. I just kind of had to adapt with it. It like a weird, just when I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing, I'm like, okay, so this is like, I really did. I was the station manager at Auburn's campus radio station. So I was thinking terrestrial FM radio is the future, and then I mentioned it earlier, the reckoning that happened at Citadel Broadcasting. I was just doing nights on Live 100.5. And I saw voice actor after voice actor walking down the halls with their stuff in a box one day. It was just like, this is the day that Hatchet is coming down. You had transitioned to sports at that time, so you were in a
Yes,
different
I
hall.
did. That's one smart thing I did.
I was just like, oh my gosh, okay, so this is not this is not a viable career choice for me. Maybe my name's going to be called next. We were seriously all sitting in our offices waiting to see which phone was called. So it was a crazy time. And now we're here in social media world, and I'm trying to adjust to it too. So I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. You're everywhere, and you have to be. To come back to a point that you guys, I think, do a great job. You have a great everyman take, and you have a great clinical take on things. So what is the ratio of a female's pictures on her Instagram, if it's just a selfie and it's almost like the same selfie over and over and over again? What's the ratio, crazy to not crazy?
How old is she?
She is over 25.
Okay.
How much is too much?
Well, I will say one thing. It's amazing how good people look in those little circles. Is it not? I mean, when you see a little circle, and you're like,
what
ooh,
you're talking about.
And you click on, you're like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when you see all that flesh, you just see a bubble of flesh, like, ooh, and I did that like
that and filters,
I did it like 15 times last time. I'm like, that one looks good. I hit it. And I'm like, maybe a little bigger. And you're like, whoa. First thing that bothers me, and you can call this a selfie, stop taking pictures of your legs at the beach. You've done that before. Stop it. That is,
you don't want to see my feet?
Toes in the sand.
Toes in the sand. Current situation, man.
Like, first of all, have a nice body if you're going to do it.
You don't like my toes?
But the whole upper legs to the feet, I'm like, get a manicure and stop sending me pictures of your feet.
Well, look, that's just etiquette. You should not be sending nasty toe pictures.
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't do it. But that's also, think about it. That's what we do as humans. We see someone else do it and we go.
You know what Facebook is? It's glamour shots. It's all it is. I mean, I know people that go to professional studios now just so they can have a great picture on their Facebook page. And I'm like, why?
Glamour or tragedy. It's the highlight reel, but highlight not just of the best place, right? It's what somebody feels is most important, even if it is the lasagna or the urgent care. But that's what you tend to see. You tend to see, we had a great vacation. We got a new car.
Tell me psychologically what kind of affirmation I need by sending out a wonderful dinner that I just made. So last night someone was like, look at this spread I just made. And they took a picture of like their ribs. And I'm like, what are we doing? What are we looking for? What do you want? It looks great. You're a hell of a cook. Congratulations. Your family's going to have a full belly tonight and everyone's going to be taking a deuce in about an hour. That's great. Why do you need to take pictures of the meal you just, look at this grill here on Father's Day?
Yeah.
Okay, great. You grill your corn, your asparagus. It's amazing. But I don't need to see it. Why?
It's not.
You're putting it out there.
Right.
So people will go, wow, I never thought to grill my asparagus. Yeah,
No. Not everybody's putting it out there just to get the response. Let me take you down.
Why the hell are they putting it out there?
There's a little nuance to it. There's a little nuance. People want their lives to be known. They want it to be known. And so if you think about social media, even if you don't get a response, or you don't get the I love it or whatever, you know that if you put it out there, your life now is known, or whatever the event is, broader, bigger than just the event. And so a lot of times people put it because
why is that important to people to broaden their life to people they don't even know?
Because
if you're sending those pictures DM to your family members, and you want to do something on Facebook where you have a family book, and I get that, where you want to send pictures of your 2-year-old in the bathtub to your sister-in-law, whatever. I get that.
Yeah, I know.
But when you're sending out stuff to perfect strangers and you're trying to broaden your life, what the hell kind of affirmation are you trying to get from people?
It's not. You're not trying to get affirmation.
Oh my! And then people are sending out pictures of them in bikinis. What kind of interaction do you think you're going to get from freaks going, "Hey, that's a great looking beach bum you have there"? Well, I mean, I don't get it. I mean, are we so insecure that we need to send out all this stuff to let?
We are.
So all of us are very insecure. We all need affirmation. Yes, Tony, we're all very.
We are.
We have all very low opinions of ourselves. Trust me, Tony. We all do.
And there's this thing that says you can get affirmations anytime you want. It's one thing. We were this way before it started. Right?
Yeah.
That's what just generally we have some insecurity. Everybody's got insecurities. They want people to like them, etc. Now there's this ocean of potential affirmation, and it's like the forbidden fruit.
Okay, this would be a great topic for the show.
I know this would be a great topic.
This would be a great. We are. This is a great topic for a show. But if you're a guy who has a very attractive woman who likes to post a lot of pictures of herself, wearing low-cut clothing, high skirts.
Red flag. Red flag.
Is that something that you have to have a discussion about?
Yes. Absolutely.
Man, I don't want to share my woman with everybody. Now, if she's a stripper or she wears stuff like that all the time and she's out, but why do you need to post selfies of yourself wearing things? There's one particular girl, and I'm not going to mention her name, that's on Facebook. I don't know why it pops up on my page because I don't follow her. Every day she posts about 6 or 7 pictures of her in a bikini out by a pool. And when you scroll through the pictures, because I had to do some research, when you post her, she seems to be a pretty nice gal. She's married. She's got 3 children. She seems to be very, very friendly. She does charity work.
Oh, I know who you're talking
And
about.
I'm thinking to myself, okay, but why does she feel the need to post pictures of her, not in compromising positions, but they're sexy
exactly
pictures? I wouldn't want my wife doing that.
No.
Well, not everybody's, as affirmed and just like self-confident and self-actualized as you, Tony Kurre. We just aren't.
This is why. Why do you think he had to have a licensed clinical psychologist be his partner? There's like the nuances, Tony.
Hey, can I mention real quick? Yes. Let's talk about charities. The Bright House Foundation is having a fundraiser at Workplay coming up on Thursday night. June 20th. It raises money and awareness and advocates for individuals with special needs. A lot of people know that my 12-year-old son has got special needs. He's adopted from Guatemala. He's just an unbelievable kid, and he inspired us to create the Bright House Foundation, which is a decade old. My wife has just done a fantastic job of putting together the Bright House Foundation All Things Birmingham event. It's going to be an auction. We're going to auction off a Cadillac. We have a 3-day hog hunt thanks to Bob Coker at World Deer Expo. Everyone who walks through the door gets a World Deer Expo ticket, so you're basically breaking even. 100% of the proceeds, like everything we do, goes back out. There's no administration fees or cost or anything, although my wife probably should get paid for what she does because she works really hard. But it's going to be a local artist. It's going to be rock and rollers. We got stuff from Taylor Hicks, Damon Johnson, Alice Cooper, Aerosmith, Sheryl Crow. We got autographed stuff from all these different rock and rollers who have some type of tie to the Birmingham area. And then my wife went to Sloss Furnaces, the Birmingham Fire Department, the Birmingham Police Department. She's gone around and gotten all these really cool rustic pieces of history that we're going to be auctioning off. And again, all the money goes to the Bright House Foundation. Go to brighthousefoundation.org or .com. You can also go to workplay.com and get your tickets. Thank you. That's great.
Fantastic. That is awesome. I'm going to do some quick rapid fire questions with y'all, and we'll shut this thing down. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for doing this. This is a blast, and y'all's show is really a really fun thing. I really enjoy it. Who would win in a fight?
Tony.
I agree. Just because you're West Coast. He's in much better shape than I am. If we had a yoga fight, I think he'd probably beat me.
So in one of your episodes, Tony, you mentioned you can tell how attractive a woman is by looking at the back of her hair.
Yes.
And your example was, I am sitting in church. You said you were sitting in church and you could see the back of people's head. Why are you checking out people in church, Tony?
She was sitting right in front of me.
How did you guys get Mike Leach, WSU? Is that right, WSU?
Yeah, Washington State.
How did you guys get WSU head coach Mike Leach to be a regular on your show?
A friend of mine, who was actually my agent for a period of time while I was looking for work, just gave me a list of phone numbers. I had Kirby Smart, I had Les Miles, Mike Leach, and I knew Mike Leach was great at interviews, and he was the one that responded to me, and he came on the show, and I said, "You want to come on next week?" And he's like, "Sure." And next thing you know, it's been over a year. And so he's joined the show, and now he's on KCAS Radio on Thursday mornings.
From wherever he is.
He is hilarious.
He's been in Croatia. He's been everywhere.
Yeah.
I called him during the halftime of the Colorado game this past year, and he picked up. During the halftime of the football game. He's like, what do you want? I'm like, can you come on for a few minutes? He goes, dude, it's halftime. I'm in the locker room. Can I call you back? I'm like, okay. I mean, how cool is that?
Great.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And he loves KCAS Radio, by the way, too.
Too cool. What's your favorite interview or person you've introduced on stage or anything like that? What's your favorite interview or interaction with a classic rock icon that you've ever had?
Oh my God, this is a whole...
There's hundreds, I know.
Yeah,
but...
and some of them you can't talk about on air.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great story about Greg Allman and a woman who met him backstage that had his illegitimate child, which was a great story. Stevie Ray Vaughan I brought on stage a week before he passed away.
Oh, man.
Dan Fogelberg had a good story. Jackson Brown was a very interesting interview at Oak Mountain Amphitheater because he played a week after Daryl Hannah accused him of beating her. And he opened up and talked about it, and I didn't ask a question. And we talked backstage for 45 minutes, and of course I was on a Memorex tape, so it only went 30 minutes, and I'm sitting there flipping it over going, please, please, please. But I have to say my favorite story is Chuck Berry. Can I share it with you real quick?
Sure.
No, Chuck Berry played city stages back in 1989, and I was a huge Chuck Berry fan. I'm a firm believer that all classic rock came from the blues, came from religious music, it came from gospel music. I mean, that's where it all started, right?
Yeah.
Everything comes from that form of music. And so Chuck Berry was like the beginning of that. And so Chuck Berry was playing near Lynn Park, and there were like 55,000 people down there. At the time, I talked to Jay Wilson, the guys at Red Mountain Entertainment. I said, I want to bring him on stage. Like, you're a classic rock station. I'm not so sure. And I was like, come on, please let me bring Chuck Berry on. So I went down there with an album, Chuck Berry Live from London, and went down there, and he pulled up in this piece of crap car. I had this really cute girl in the front seat of the car. He leaves his car running, by the way, for the entire show. He gets his cash up front. He goes up, plays his 45-minute set, goes back down. The car is running. He's gone. So I got up there, and the promoter said, listen, get up there and announce who you are. And Classic Rock 99 had just come on the air about 6 months earlier, so we had a good buzz going about it. And he goes, get up there, sing your name, get off the stage. And so I got up there, announced my name. The crowd was great. It was a huge moment for me. I turned around to the left and ran off stage, and I hear booing. I mean, a lot of booing. And I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? I run down the stage, and the promoter's like, get your ass back up there, get up there, get up there. So I turn around, run back up the stage. Well, Chuck had come around to my right and put his hand out to shake my hand, and I left him hanging. Oh, no. And I'm getting up there, and he was still standing there like this.
Just held it? Oh, my
and I was like with his little chicken leg up, and I went there and shook his hand. So I walked up, I felt horrible. My biggest moment, I felt horrible. And at the end, he got in his car with his little girlfriend, and they were taking off. And I said, Mr. Barry, and I was a good 50 yards away. I said, would you please sign this album? He's like, And I said, I'm the one that screwed up when I came on stage. He made his way through the crowd, signed it, and took off. So that was my best story, yeah.
That's too cool.
That was my best story.
That is hilarious and awesome. Real quick, if you could, because it's something that I think a lot of people are having to deal with, and they don't know how to. Processing these mass tragedies that we see, like we can almost firsthand be a witness, a bystander in these, whatever it may be, a shooting, the Charlottesville, whatever the case may be. You can feel so close to these tragedies now. How can people process these mass tragedies on like a mass scale in a better way, and kind of not feel so close to it, so personally affected by it?
Well, first of all, I don't think they can. Yeah. I think, and it doesn't even have to be the mass tragedies. If we just use just one of the recent examples of the couple that their young child took something from the Dollar Tree store in Phoenix, and you're watching this online, and nobody was killed, and it was a police arrest, and there's question about police brutality and that stuff, but nobody was killed. But you watch that where there isn't even a shooting, and your stomach is turning. We're hardwired to process those kinds of things in a way that makes us feel bad, scared, nauseous, sad, all those kinds of things. That's what keeps us alive. I think the challenge we have is we have access to it. We have access to it in real time. I think the other thing that's a little bit scary too is until they pull things down, we can go back and watch anything. And one of the things we have to learn how to evolve around is being able to be faced with mass tragic things, mass traumas, and when it affects us, not just say, oh, it's no big deal. I guess my point is we are going to be impacted more and more psychologically by these things, because not only are they occurring, but it doesn't matter where they occur. Now, no matter where you are, you can see them. What you have to learn is if you're starting to feel nervous, if you're starting to feel anxious, if you can't get it out of your mind, people might look at you and say, well, look, dude, it didn't even happen to you. You're 1,000 miles away. But our brains are wired such that for some people, it'll loop. You can develop PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, from watching that. And I think from a societal standpoint, we have to recognize that is a risk in our society. And that gets into the whole issue of sort of mental health and this idea that, you may need to go talk to somebody like me just because you saw something on a video and not say, okay, there's no reason for me to go talk because it didn't really happen to me. That is a function of our society nowadays. And it gets at the whole issue of thoughts and feelings. They've always been there. It's just that now we have access to so many more things.
Yeah. Well, sorry to end on a downer there. But
thanks a lot for that.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
my bad.
me.
In fact, Tony,
Let me tell you my Stevie Nicks story.
We can't do this.
You need to ask him about the python and the bowling ball.
I'll tell you a real quick story.
Yes.
I anyone that's worked night radio usually has a particular couple women that call the show late night and like to talk trash on the phone.
By the way, this is like my favorite Tony Kurre. It's like a bedtime story.
Now we don't have that anymore because there's no one at radio stations at night. It's but there used to be like a 10 to 2 guy, 10 at night till 2 in the morning, or like a 7 to 10. And I was working nights in Louisville, Kentucky, and a woman called me from Floyd's Knobs. It's a real city in Indiana. The station was a
strip club.
No, it could have been. And was calling me and was using the phone as a prop. That's as far as I'll go.
All right.
And invited me come over to her apartment after I got off there at midnight. And so I called a friend of mine. I said, what should I do? And he goes, dude, there's a reason why you have these women. It's like the Beavis and Butthead, the real sexy woman, and she's this big. He's like, dude, there's a reason why they're on the phone. Be careful. He goes, but take a pizza. Because if you show up the door and she's dog ugly, then you can say, did you order a pizza? And just leave. And if she's good looking, say, hey, I brought a pizza over, right? So I got a pizza on the way over, and I went over, and it was a very attractive woman. And I was like, okay. And she's like, hold on a second. You're looking for my aunt. She'll be right here. I went, and so this woman walks up. She's probably mid-60s. She's got a python snake around her neck, a huge python snake like this big around her neck. And she's like, Tony. And of course, we had talked some serious trash on the phone like an hour earlier. And I'm going, okay. And she's like, do you mind if my niece hangs out with us? I was like, no. Was she there when you were on the phone? Blah, 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 blah. But she had bags lined up along her walls. And I was like, and I had no clue what were in these bags. It was just weird looking. They looked like
And there's a python around her neck.
And she had a python, and I sat on the couch
the whole time.
And I said, okay, I'll buy it. I brought a pizza over. And she said, are you wondering what's in these bags? And I said, yes. And she said, they're balls. And I said, okay, how many disc jockeys have been over to your apartment? They were bowling balls. She was a professional bowler in Indiana. I actually looked her up after I left, and she had a 223 average back in 1986. And she had over 150 bowling balls along with that python. And we sat there, and it was embarrassing because we had talked some serious trash on the phone an hour earlier, and I gave her a big hug and took off and never heard from her again, thank God.
Is that a better ending for you, Chris?
That's a lot better.
That's mass tragedy is what that is.
Yeah, he's still in therapy because of that.
You got PTSD.
That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. All the links regarding the K&K Show and K-Cast can be found at Adler.tv, and also about the Bright House Foundation as well. Next week, my guest is Erin Adler. That's my wife. That's right. We're going to sit and talk about our RV road trip to the Grand Canyon. We're going to talk about finances and planning and booking and bonding. It's going to be amazing. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube, and thank you so much for listening on Apple Podcasts. Y'all have been amazing. I will catch you next week with a brand new episode. See ya.
I got PTSD.
Python traumatic stress ball disorder.